Hey folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. I'm Deneen Borelli. And joining me today is Ed Lopez. Ed is running for state representative in Connecticut's 150th district. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Deneen. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Well, before we get into your campaign, Ed, just tell us a little bit about your background and your life experience.
Sure. So basically, my family grew up in many places, largely because of military service and in academia. My parents were college professors, but before that, it was a lot of military people. And so we have had roots in the Northeast for a very long time. And it's people who have done stuff in the military and the art space and different spaces like that. But largely military, I would say. And so my family is the same. We moved around a lot. And we have been in New England, my immediate family, for almost 30 years. And in Greenwich, we've been for about 7 years. We chose to come to Greenwich, which is an important reason why I've had a lot to think about in terms of what is important for Greenwich and for Connecticut. And basically, I've put time into the military. I work in public relations and do public affairs and entertainment relations, both. And I'm also, besides my military and public relations work, I'm also in the Greenwich Representative Town Meeting, which is our town legislature, and serve in a lot of committees because I'm in the smallest district in the town. So we take a lot on. But that's, in a nutshell, some of my background.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thanks.
First of all,
appreciate it.
thank you. So what motivated you to run for office, Ed?
Well, when we came here, my wife and I, we understood there were certain things about Greenwich that made it work the way it has worked. And in particular, the fact that it's always given space for people to progress socioeconomically. It's a place that has cultivated and nurtured a lot of talent. We know we've had very good schools, both on the public side and the private side. So we came to Greenwich understanding the advantages that Greenwich had to offer. But in the time that we've been here, we've also seen how things have been changing slowly. And I think a lot of it is the things that are coming from Hartford. Hartford, of course, takes a pretty significant amount of the tax base from places like Greenwich. I think we're the most taxed, the highest taxed town. And Fairfield County in general endures this sort of issue. But overall, what I've seen is the impact that policies from Hartford have on things right down the road. As a member of the RTM, I've been very cognizant of serving constituents, being in touch with them. And it's pretty palpable that housing policies, for example, taxes, things that have to do with the pocketbook are impacting our quality of life here. And Greenwich, is we get cast by Hartford as a lot of things that we're not. This is not only are we socioeconomically diverse, we're diverse, period. And I think that we need to be given the room and space to breathe and to lead, too. I think that Greenwich can set a tone in Hartford for our policy making and for how to best allow municipalities to cultivate entrepreneurship, small businesses, to really maximize the things that work for those spaces. We have a blue economy in my district. We're right on the ocean, basically. We have Long Island Sound there. And we also have a lot of green space in a town like Greenwich. So you have that green economy too. And that's on top of the other things that we have to address, like taxes. And like I said, other issues too that I think are affecting us a lot are, for example, the housing stuff. And education is an important space too.
So what are your top campaign issues, especially when you are meeting folks, knocking on doors and going to events? What are some of the top issues that you talk about and that you're promoting?
So the thing that I've obviously talked about the things that resonate for my wife and I as residents here in my district. And but what I notice is a lot of people feel the same way. They have, they're holding two jobs as the two heads of the household. And they feel the money doesn't stretch. A lot of us understand it is a more expensive area to live in, but it's really tough when you put in the amount of work that you do, and you try to make ends meet. And of course, we have a lot of great things here. So we're paying a premium, without doubt, to live near New York City and to still be in New England, which has its own great things. We're in a way, we're in a sweet spot culturally. And the issues I think we have to restore being in a sweet spot economically. People from New York would move here because they understood they had access to all the great cultural things that New York has to offer. But at the same time, they understood that there is an economic advantage here. And of course, I'm talking about things that have been changing since the early 1990s when we first got a state income tax. And so I think when I talk to voters, it's honestly really the simple pocketbook issues. They really feel very strongly that something has to change in Hartford, because it's not just about going back to the way things were before COVID. That's one step in addressing our economic plight. It's also about trying to look and see how things change in the last 30 years, roughly, more than 30 years almost, But I think especially since the early 90s, what things have we done? What kind of taxes have been put in place by governors, and for what reasons? Sometimes it's an emergency thing or something else, but then we don't revisit those issues properly. And so I think for most people, it has to do with the high gas prices. It has to do with, how much of their income they get to keep, how much of that income they can put toward their children's education, and if they're entrepreneurial, what kind of ambitions they can harbor with that sort of economic base that's being, in my view, and I think most of their views, abused by Hartford. Those are important things that I hear a lot along the way on the kind, when I'm out knocking doors and talking to people and at events. But there's a lot of other stuff too that people pick out that are very specific to them. In my district, the 830G policies have had a pretty profound impact, as we get the majority of that here in this space. And in the end, the irony is that the things that they're trying to do in Hartford, this whole concept of when they talk about desegregation, I think that the funny thing is that they end up segregating people in many respects. For example, here in my district, a lot of the folks that would be able to take advantage of affordable housing opportunities don't want to be isolated in one part of town. So you have all these other issues that are not being addressed when Hartford comes up with these ideas. It's about local control when it comes to things like that.
And there are so many things that are going on in the state of Connecticut. If you are elected, what are the top few issues that you would address head on?
I think lowering taxes is the first one. The tax burden here is pretty significant. The other thing is trying to understand with colleagues who are philosophically in the same space that we are in, especially, like Brian Fazio, somebody who I've been working with a lot on the trail. And, we were discussing the fact that, as long as Hartford has these, a Democratic majority at the scale that it does, it's really hard to push back on issues that people don't feel very comfortable with, and all over the state, it just, there has to be more balance. So restoring balance is a big thing. Lowering taxes, restoring balance, and trying to create opportunity for small businesses in the state, trying to cultivate policies that will attract young people. I was campaigning with another candidate. It was actually with Ryan, and one of his interns was telling me how, I asked him, are you going to stay in Greenwich after you're done with school? And, he's looking elsewhere because he understands economic opportunity in Connecticut is not what it used to be. Even though he's so young, he understands. So those would be my priorities in Hartford.
And while you have the floor, is there anything that we have not touched on that you would like to mention?
Well, I think people a lot of times get caught up in national politics, and they do have a profound impact on what's happening locally. But I do think that we have to realize that we have some pretty important issues to tackle at the State House. And there's always space to talk about some of these broader issues, and a lot of them are philosophical. Some of them do have a personal impact on people, and there's space to talk about those things. But I think we have to put people in a good place economically first. We have to help people feel like they have the ability to help themselves before we start getting into these debates that are really meant to divide people in the end. I think we might find a lot more common ground on some of these social issues that surface at the national level. But the way that they're thrown around, unfortunately, it's the political climate we live in. That's one of the hardest things about running for office these days is the dialogue has unfortunately really been damaged by a lot of the tools we have now have both been a blessing and a curse. We have a more democratic process, with social media and all these things, but it's also not vetted very well, and it also it's a vessel for a lot of anger. And I think that there's a lot of room to have discussions in a civilized way and to make progress in spaces that might resolve other broader issues that we have.
Sure. And how can people help, and what is your website and your social media platforms?
Sure. My website and the social media platforms are all at Lopez for Greenwich. So it's lopezforgreenwich.com, and then Facebook is / Lopez for Greenwich. Same thing with Instagram. And Twitter is the only one. They limit characters, so it's Lopez for 150th. That's the Twitter account. And basically, we're at the last stages of raising funds for the Citizens Election Program. Basically, right now we're doing is getting our Greenwich donors. These are small donations that we need. We are fine with the amount that we have. So it's literally the end of that. But the biggest thing is for people to help us meet other people, give us the opportunity to speak to their friends and colleagues, and help give us good exposure with the people that they know in our neighborhoods.
All right. Well, Ed Lopez, running for state representative in Connecticut's 150th district. I wish you all the best. Good luck, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Deneen. I appreciate it.
Folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. And remember, everyone has a role to play. What are you doing for liberty? Until next time.